Insurance. It's never one of those fun, sexy topics to talk about, but it's something that could be really important in your financial situation. This week on the podcast with Donna, we're going to talk about just discussing when it's insurance. What's the right scenario to deal with insurance? This week on Wisdom and Wealth, Financial Clarity for Families in Transition with Donna, Kendrick, and Jim's going to join us as well. Stick around.
This is Donna, and this is Jim, each with a family that had to begin again. As they've brought their worlds together, they've learned a lot about blending families and finances along the way. Now, they're here to help you take on this new chapter with clarity and confidence. This is Wisdom and Wealth, Financial Clarity for Families in Transition.
Hey, everybody. Welcome into the podcast this week as Donna and Jim and myself talk about investing, finance, retirement, and insurance. Guys, we're going to talk a little insurance, and I know some people are like, oh, geez, insurance, it's so boring. But it could be a really useful tool, right? I kind of had a hypothetical scenario I wanted to toss out at you, Donna, and kind of have you walk through us, what's the importance of it? Is it valuable? Do we need it? What's going on? But I think we can really just talk about your guys and your situation, because insurance wound up playing a pretty crucial role in your own life. So maybe we just talk about that.
Yeah, let's jump into it. And I always say to my clients when I'm sitting with them, there's three things we're going to talk about. The importance of financial planning, because that's what I talk about all the time. Also, the value of insurance, because it was life insurance that protected me after my first husband passed. We got that insurance when we worked with our first financial advisor. And it was that insurance that allowed me to keep my house and educate my kids, and recreate my career. It gave me a little bit of leeway for a year or two, that I didn't have to be working full time, that I could support myself. And that opened up all of the doors because I was able to recreate my career because of that cushion life insurance gave me. And then I always say, then we always talk about our estate documents, and that kind of layers in with life insurance. So when we move forward and Jim and I blended families, we'll be married for 2 years in June. It was really important for me to sit with Jim and have that conversation about life insurance and how we were going to use it to protect one another, to be able to provide security for one another, because our financial relationship is a little bit different, right? We've got kids, we have assets from other marriages. And what did that look like for it?
Well, Jim, how was your thought when she said, hey, sit down, let's talk insurance? Were you like, oh, let me get my hammer and hit myself on the toe with it while we're talking about it?
Well, it throws me off because, Donna's very cautious about the insurance and stuff. And I think at the time, I don't even think I had health insurance.
You did not.
Which just drove her crazy.
Okay.
But no, I think, obviously from talking to her and going over everything, it does make sense. I was, to have that parachute, to have something that just in case happens. I mean, I always looked at it like, what are the odds? But it happens.
Yeah. Well, a lot of us do. Did you kind of find it eye-opening? Because I know, I'm not a financial advisor. I've been hosting shows like this and co-hosting shows for a number of years, and I know a lot about finance now. But there's always I'm still constantly learning something. And I'm like, whoa. I find a lot of that stuff pretty, eye-opening, to where early, even just 9 years ago, I was like, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of us do that. Did you feel the same way?
Absolutely. Most of the time it was just, you were just working, and it was just, you were worried about your everyday, living for the now. And, my thought, it would be like, well, if something happened to Donna, I just have to work, 18 hours a day. That would just be a natural thing. Well, I guess I get 2 full-time jobs, which that's why it makes more sense for the insurance, but it never crossed my mind. It was always, you just, again, live for today and, not worry about it right now. But when the day comes, you have to worry about it. It's too late.
Well, Donna, that's a good point. That's probably a lot of the challenges you probably talk with when speaking with potential clients, right? Many people are just doing their day to day, and they're just not thinking about some of those extra, pieces. And you kind of have to talk us through that.
Yeah, and that's a lot of where I share my own story, right? Is literally when my first husband passed, I was making $17,600 a year, right? He was making well over 6 figures. So the day he passed is the day his income passed, right? And I had to figure out how to replace that income and how to replace it through Social Security, if I was being eligible for his pension or not, and then what was the difference. It was a real pullback in our lifestyle. So thank goodness I did have the life insurance to be able to help protect those other goals that we had. I remember when Greg and I first sat, and this is kind of where I like to dig in with Jim, is you can use life insurance, the tool. There's permanent, there's term, but you can use, let's just talk about term in general, because for many of us in middle class America, that's what we can afford, right? So you do a medical qualification. They do some background checks to make sure you're telling the truth with what your doctor has in his folder. And then they give you a price, and that price is usually fixed, right? For either 10 years, term years, or 10 years or 20 years. You can pick, you can customize it for what you need. So when Greg and I first got insurance, we needed to replace, I think it was at least 2 years of his salary. We wanted to replace the mortgage. So if something happened to him, we could be debt free. And we wanted to be able to provide for the kids. Greg was very big on being able to afford college, being able to leave a legacy, be able to cover weddings, right? And I would have been just happy with the income. A little bit different, like how we had the conversation. When Jim and I started talking about insurance, it was a little bit less of, do I need to replace 2 years of income? Because when we first sat down for insurance, Jim, we were both working full time. But it was a matter of, we bought a house that was in foreclosure and needed a lot of love, right? And Jim was the one who was giving it all that love. You still are, Jim, aren't you?
Every day.
And so for me, every day, life insurance was, what if something happens to Jim? What if he's on one of his creative scaffolds hanging up on the chandeliers? It's way too complicated. That's a great point. Right. And I have to hire someone to help me with this house. It's like 1890. Is that when the house was made? Like
1900. Yep.
1900s.
Close enough.
Too much for me. So we really went through, and I had to pick his brain and be like, if I had to give you a per hour to do all of this work, how much would it cost me to hire a third person? That's why we bought insurance, or I could not have said yes to buying that house.
That's a really good point, right? Because it's like, okay, look, you're becoming incapacitated because you fall, or even worse, we've got to hire someone to do this work. What would it cost? What would it take? That's a great way of looking at it. And did that ring a bell for you, Jim, when you were able to kind of start kind of itemizing that down as a professional, right? As a professional carpenter, but then also kind of seeing this side from, obviously from Donna being a professional financial advisor. I imagine that was pretty eye-opening as well.
Oh, it definitely was, especially some of the dumb stuff I do while working.
Don't talk to my wife.
No,
she's OSHA. Don't do it.
Oh, I have many. I know OSHA.
We have OSHA stories.
Now working on the house. It's an old house. You're up high. You know what I mean? You're doing stuff. So yeah, it made sense. I didn't want the reason why it worked so well between the two of us was we were able to get the house. Like I said, we don't have to hire anybody. I'm doing everything. But yeah, if something happened halfway through, there's a lot of money left on the table, that has to go somewhere.
Well, what's that replacement value, Donna? And that's really kind of the big piece of insurance, right? Is the replacement value. Now, a lot of times when you're talking about, for financial purposes, whether you're younger or older, it changes the dynamic of, do I need insurance or not, right? I'm older. My kids are grown. I don't need insurance or whatever, but there could be other reasons like this. You guys have got some kids that are grown, but also some kids that aren't grown. Right. But as an income replacement, it still could be a viable tool, even if you're older, even if you're over 50.
And that's actually where we actually got insurance on myself. So when we first got married, we didn't have life insurance on me. We were both working full time in our full time careers. And then Jim took a step back from being a carpenter full time with a commercial company to help me with Sefton Financial. So he's actually sacrificing his ability to save for retirement, his ability to save on an everyday basis to help my company. So we used insurance for two reasons. One, to replace my income should something happen to me, because he's taken a step back. And two, also the way we have our finances set up is we want the house to be there for all of the children. We don't want to liquidate the house if something happens to me. We want to make sure that it's there for all 6 kids and the generations to come. And I want to make sure that if something happens to me, Jim can still be there. Now, babe, if you want to get married again, go find another place. My memory. So sorry. I'll be very forthcoming
Breaking
with
news,
that.
dude, you're out.
We basically have insurance on Donna so the kids don't throw me out of the house with something.
There you go. Right?
Absolutely true. Like, I want to make sure that he can still afford the house to stay in it, as well as my missing revenue. But a whole different reason for why we have insurance. And that does feel different. When we sit with all of our clients, we're always looking at, are you overinsured, to your point, Mark, right? Like, when you get a little bit older and all the kids' education is paid off, many of times the house is paid off. Why do we have that? Are we having it to provide a legacy for the kids, or is it just redundant right now, right? Or should we just keep paying it?
And it could be redundant, right? I mean, but that's the point of the analysis, is to find out, are you overinsured, or does it, because I mean, even it could still even have income replacement value, Donna. Like, even though, yes, you may not be working if you've gotten into retirement, it still could be a source of income for your spouse when you pass on, right?
100%.
So it still could be a viable tool. I think we've been kind of inundated with this, a couple basic financial concepts with you and I have talked about a number of times, that you'll be in a lower tax bracket when in retirement, which isn't always the case. Matter of fact, a lot of times it's not the case. A traditional 60-40 portfolio will work. That's really not much the case anymore either. And you shouldn't have insurance when you're older. And I don't think that any of those really hold water in the modern world. It's viable to look at all of these strategies. Would you agree?
I definitely agree. And the fact too is, if you do have, let's say, that term insurance, like, the premium might be so low, then why not have it, right? Like, Jim would look very nice in a Corvette when something happens to me. Enjoy yourself, right? But there's also,
you can't stay in the house, dude, but you can have a Corvette.
it's not like his hair is going to blow. I mean, come on.
I'm going to need something with a back seat to sleep. Bring a pillow with me.
She says it's not like your hair is going to blow. Oh, man.
No, it's been many years for that.
So rude. So rude.
Yeah, thanks. But the same is too, and this is something that is really important, is that's just a term insurance, right? You can use permanent insurance, which is a wonderful way to actually save for some long-term goals and have an extra layer of protection. It's also a wonderful way to save some money that might be cash, right? Not retirement money, for the legacy, for the next person moving on, for our kids and our grandkids.
So that's something like a cash value policy, Donna?
Exactly. Cash value policy, where you actually pay in. It has a savings feature to it. Many of those policies can even be invested in the marketplace. So always sit with your financial advisor, but always to make sure that if you're like, no, I have life insurance, it's with my employer, it's 3 times my salary, we're covered. What if you switch employers and you were with that employer at 30, now you're 55, and are you insurable, right? What if you have some type of medical condition that you're not insurable anymore? So I always say, like, hedge your bets a little bit there. We like the employer coverage. Sometimes that's the most affordable way to get in coverage, but getting an outside policy that sticks with you is really important. So you can tell I talk about it a lot.
Yeah, I mean, we're all just one doctor's visit or blood test away from being uninsurable in the modern world, or one shaky scaffold, I suppose.
He sent me a picture. I was like, no.
No, Jim.
Do you know, if something happens to you, how bad my dating profile is going to look like? 2 widows. Bad, Bob.
Oh no, that's so bad. All right. So any final thoughts on, insurance as, in the scenario, especially I guess from a blended family? It seems like just on this conversation with you guys, and this is obviously part of the point of having Jim on, is talking about your guys' blended life, with our fun little Brady Bunch style intro, because you guys both came into this relationship with kids and so on and so forth. Seems to me like that's an even more important conversation in a blended family than maybe in a traditional. Is that fair or no?
I think it's very, very fair. And I guess for a final comment, it's just, if you come into the blended family and you do have existing policies, I beg everyone to check the beneficiary designation. You can have a primary beneficiary, you can have a shared primary 50-50, and then you have contingent beneficiaries. In blended families, use that role of contingent beneficiaries well, because if something happens to us both, what then? That's your choice. Where do you want it to go? Top 3 kids, bottom 3 kids, all 6 kids, who knows, right? We can make more lines on those. So
Yeah, that's a good point. The likelihood of the shaky scaffold falling and taking out both of them is probably smaller, but if so, you still want to have that contingency person on there, right? And Donna, we did the podcast a numbers back. So folks, if you subscribe to us on Apple or Spotify, especially in the audio form, you can go back a few episodes. I can't remember exactly which one it is, but we can put a redirect in the show details where we specifically talk quite a bit about beneficiary designations and the importance of making sure you update those, because if you are in a second marriage or something like that and you've left the original person on, it doesn't matter what you put in your will. It doesn't matter, that stuff, the BDs trump that. So you got to make sure you have that correct. So good point.
Yeah. And Jim, if anything happens to me, remember the executor of the will knows where everything is and they will guide you through it. Deal?
Hey, that's all I need, as long as someone's there to hold my hand.
And that could be a great point as well. So if you need somebody to hold your hand, folks, we'll wrap it up there. Reach out to Donna and the team at SeftonFinancial.com, SEPHTON Financial.com. A lot of good tools, tips, and resources. Get some time on her calendar. Have a conversation with her about your situation, needing insurance, not needing insurance. Go through the analysis process and just kind of see what your scenario is calling for. And of course, don't forget to subscribe to us, as I mentioned before, on Apple or Spotify. Or Google, or YouTube, I should say now. I keep wanting to say Google, even though they stopped Google Podcasts. Everything's on YouTube. You can subscribe to us. You can hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell for future episodes, and all that good stuff. And check the show note descriptions for more details there. And we'll see you next time here on Wisdom and Wealth with Donna and Jim. We'll catch you next time. Thanks, folks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Registered representative offering securities through Cetera Financial Specialists, LLC, member FINRA SIPC. Advisory services are offered through Cetera Investment Advisors, LLC. Cetera is under separate ownership from any other named entity. Sefton Financial, LLC and Cetera are not affiliated. Sefton Financial is located at 8200 Flowertown Avenue, Suite 4B in Windmore, Pennsylvania. Zip code 19038.